Hey everybody, and welcome to Indie Film Cafe's Docs That Rock. I'm your old pal the Moo Cow, aka Paulie Presents It, and I'm joined by
Jonathan A. Moody, your co-host.
and we're joined by the Film Freaks Cow. Moo.
Aw, the Muesli? Is this Muesli?
That's not Muesli, that's Little Moo.
That's Little Moo. Hi, Little Moo.
Yay. And today we are going to talk about a movie called Lost Soul.
Lost Souls.
The,
Yes. All right.
Island of Dr. Moreau documentary.
I love
which
this
is
movie.
Amazeballs. It's one of my favorites. It's a great documentary. And yeah, we will be back to talk about that. And on the flip side, right?
Really soon. Yep.
See you soon. Bye. Docs. That rock! Yeah, I should have come back with an ice bucket on my head.
Why didn't you bring
White
an ice
makeup
bucket?
on. That would have been so fun. Marlon Brando, my hat's off to you. You were awesome.
My bucket head is off.
What a great movie.
Oh man, it's been a while since I've seen it. I was
Richard Gregory, that's the director. And
David
it's
Gregory.
David Gregory. And it's a Severin production about the epic behind the story about what happens in the making of the Island of Dr. Moreau. It started off as a Richard Stanley production, turned into a John Frankenheimer, and it turned out neither one of them really ended up having control over it. It was just a disaster.
It was a disaster of epic proportions.
Amazing. Some of the stories that go on behind the scenes were just fascinating. And yeah, if you see one documentary in your life, definitely
This
see
is it. So like the beginning, it's like Richard Stanley explaining. Well, it talks a little bit about his backstory, about his life,
and his connection to the story. You know,
Yeah,
he's
apparently-
this new Wonder Kid direction. He did Hardware, which was a fantastic movie in 1990. He did Dust Devil, which was not quite as good, but almost as good, but very equally creative. So
Right.
he was the next guy, the next movie he was doing. So they brought him in, and he initially envisioned this to be, somewhere between $5 and $8 million.
because that's a smaller budget.
Yeah. But due to circumstances, it turned into a much bigger
It's
one.
way more than that. So like, first of all, also he had connections to the story because his great grandfather was like
Right.
an inspiration.
Lord Stanley.
Yeah, it was like an inspiration to H.G. Wells. So he was very fascinated by H.G. Wells's movies and books.
Joseph Conrad
and
then
Joseph Conrad
the conflicts that were going on between the two.
and
of
he
them.
wanted to mesh them together and create something, something big and epic. And so he started to work on this idea. He had these like poster designs. He had like a script or whatever.
Storyboards, like hundreds of
Yeah.
storyboards.
And then he pitched it to New Line, who at that time was a very smaller but still substantial company. I mean, they're still smaller. They're not like
And
Universal.
It was at the time though that they had just started to play with the big boys. So they were talking about like they just did Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro movies. They were just starting to play with the big boys.
Yeah, they were starting to do the good, and so they were worried that they didn't want to like go backwards necessarily and do something small like this, because they wanted to keep that momentum going with the big movies. But they figured 5 to 8 million probably wasn't going to be a big deal, and then
somebody brought up the idea of bringing in Marlon Brando, and then
which
that started to bring up,
skyrocketed the money a little bit,
right.
And
they had all these other guys planned out, which Bruce Willis, that also is going to bring up the budget.
James Woods,
Yeah.
and that was going to bring up the budget. And so it's so funny that we just did the Cronenberg movie, Videodrome, and then we did this, and they both had James Woods. It's like, is this some kind of like thing, James Woods Day or something?
James Woods Day.
That should be a thing, James. So so they got these guys, and then they didn't want Richard to direct it because they had a big name. They needed a big director to handle this, and so they were gonna fire him, hire somebody else. They didn't say who, but they wanted to.
Well, what
get
happened
someone else.
is Marlon Brando at first didn't like the script, and so they figured, okay, well, we'll send him to Brando. Brando's gonna chew him up, and we'll get rid of him, and we'll replace him with a new director. And in the background, before he had the meeting, he ended up going to his voodoo guy to do some kind of weird spell thing behind the scenes, which I thought was hysterical.
I know, but like, do you don't believe in voodoo,
No,
right?
but it's extra fun though.
Yeah, it's extra fun to it, but it's like not real. Like
Yeah,
so,
no.
it's like,
Funny,
but
from his point of view, it's real.
but it feels real to him.
Sure.
Because later things fall. Well,
Right.
we'll get to that. So.
But anyway, so yeah, he ends up going there afterwards, and the whole thing is completely different than what New Line wanted. It turns out him and Brando really click.
Well, because the lady fell asleep.
The lady fell asleep, so they
that
ignored
was like
her.
basically her chaperone.
Yeah.
Fell asleep because she was probably gonna keep
And
it.
Brando did that on purpose.
Oh yeah, because he kept turning it up, turning up the thing. He wanted to talk to Richard
Himself.
You know, I don't
Without
know
the
if he-
suit involved.
I don't. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he had. It never said anything, but I wonder if he had seen Hardware and he had seen some of the stuff that
I don't
Richard
know,
had done
maybe.
and was impressed by him. You know, or whatever.
Artist to artist, without the suit in between, is what he wanted, and that's what he ended up
And
doing.
here's the thing. So they had Richard Stanley. He had a vision. He knew exactly what he wanted. When John Frankenheimer came in, the first thing they said is, "What is your vision?" He goes, "There is no vision. Like that's just a made-up word people use. It's not. You know, this is just. I'm just here to tell a story." And I was like, "Oh man, no. That's not.
That's the death knell.
That is why.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You know. So
because it was all laid out. All you had to do was to go in there and do the movie.
No.
You didn't have to redo anything.
Well, okay, so then New Line has to have Richard because Richard and Marlon get along, and so he has to stay. So they pick a place, Cairns in Australia, and there's a little island or something like
It's
little
like a peninsula at the end of it.
At the end of it, and they said it was like this little teeny tiny area that's like purple. Like,
It gets all kinds of rain. It gets more rain than anywhere else.
Yeah, that gets anywhere else. And so they had to fly out to there, and they start kind of setting up. They got all the monster makeups, kind of figuring out. They've got 10 extras, you know, which later Frankenheimer wants 100, but there's like, you know.
And then people start dropping out, and you know they don't have you know, the stuff with what's his name first?
Bruce Willis
Willis, the divorce.
Yeah.
So he can't leave the country, so he's out.
Yeah, he for some reason, because of the divorce, I guess he's not allowed to just like leave. He has to be there.
And then Richard Stanley says the funniest thing. He's like, "Oh, then the next bad thing that happens in my life is I met Val Kilmer."
Yeah.
And then Val Kilmer gets attached to it, and then the budget goes up even more because he was hot property at that time, and
yeah, he goes to meet him in like Japan, and they have a bad like interaction together, and he has like a huge bad dream saying everything's gonna fall apart basically.
And he wants to be less of the movie. He's not
Yeah.
really interested in it. So he's like,
well, then why do it?
I know. So he's like, 40% less scenes, please.
I mean, money, but like, there's other projects.
Right.
Val Kilmer is going to be given other projects. One that he actually cares about.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, Hollywood actors. If you don't like the movie or don't want to do the movie, tell them that from the very beginning.
He's a little bitch. That's why he did it. God damn it.
I don't know.
Basically, he attaches himself, but only on the condition that he gets almost half the scenes. And, you know, New Line's already this freaking close to cutting the whole production. So Richard Stanley's like, okay, what if we gave you the assistant role? That automatically gives you 40% less.
No.
And he's like, okay, but now they lost James Woods. So now they got to find themselves a new lead. And
so they hired Rob Morrow.
Rob Morrow first comes on. And poor Rob Morrow has no idea what he's about to get himself into.
And he sees the trouble and the chaos and the stuff that's going on, especially with Val and Richard just not getting along
at all.
And Rob calls up Rob Shea or Bob Shea from New Line. And it's just like, I know we don't know each other. Whatever. I want out. Like, I can't do this.
Weird shit starts to happen.
Yeah.
Like someone gets bit by a spider and ends up getting super bad infected. There's a fire on set. Then the set gets hit by a hurricane and gets washed out to sea, and all this shit is happening.
All of this, like, all
Meanwhile,
of these bad things are just going on.
And he's by himself with this massive production, far the hell away from home and from friends. New Line did not send him anybody to help him.
No, he wasn't even given an AD, I think.
It's ridiculous. Why would you do that? You're setting him up to fail.
Because, like, here's the funny thing. So, we've got there's the first AD that comes in with John Frankenheimer. First thing he says is, no, this all setup is all wrong. Like, they were talking about the mountain. The only reason they chose that place was for this mountain, but you can only see the mountain for an hour and a half. And in that time, you can barely even see it, like, or whatever. Like, it's not the way that, like, I guess they really originally wanted it to be or whatever. Like, it was, so, like, if he had that guy there from the first time, like, setting it up, and they did, like, a location scout, and they said, he would have been like, it's a great mountain, but can we find another mountain? Because this just, you can, you know what I mean? Like,
and it's before the day of CGI, really,
right,
where you could have just taken the shot and then superimposed it wherever you wanted.
Right. But, so, he's there telling them this, you're telling stuff after. So that guy gets stuck in this shit show and can't do anything, whereas if they had somebody ahead of time that specifically worked with Richard to get his vision, he could have said, look, this is just not going to work. Let's find another place. Like, there are other places.
Right. And his original, story, which started off as a modest $8 million production, is now skyrocketed to $37, almost $40 million, which was a lot for 1995. And he starts to lose control. He starts getting paranoid because he knows they didn't really want him to begin with. So he's Baraboo's hair's ass away from being taken off the project.
And this
but it's his project.
And this is the truth about Hollywood. That the truth is, directors and writers are like low on the totem pole of things. Like, writers and directors are replaceable.
Producers, executive producers especially, are the ones on top.
Yeah, the producers and actors, the cast, because especially in the 90s, the actors were king. If you were gonna go see a movie, you wanted to see, the normal public, not you, but the normal public would go, I want a Tom Cruise movie, I want a Sandra Bullock movie,
and they didn't care who directed
I
it.
want a Julia Roberts movie, and it didn't matter who directed the movie. Because nobody was going to know who
Remember,
the
this is
was.
the player, the time of the player.
Right.
Where the writer and to a certain extent the director are
It was 93, same year as the player, I believe, or as close to it.
Close to it.
Maybe maybe a year after. But, so they said, basically they looked at him and they're like, let's do, like Richard Stanley, we can't, he doesn't get along with Val Kilmer, and we don't really need him.
Nobody got along with Val Kilmer. He was kind of a dick.
He was, there's that one guy that was explaining, like,
the German guy.
Yeah, that he had had a talk with him or something, and he was just just stick to him too. Like, told them to, like, not talk to him.
And then finally, Marlon Brando shows up, and his daughter had just committed suicide, so he was already in a bad state. But when he finally shows up, he doesn't like any of these people
because he didn't show up on time either.
Right, he liked Richard Stanley. That's who he wanted to work with. And then by the time he shows up, it's all been changed, and now he's like, I don't even want to do the damn thing.
So Richard is fired and told that if he
don't come within 40
kilometers, he can't come within 40 kilometers of the set, or he won't get his money. So he goes and starts living at this, like...
Well, he vanishes.
Vanishes.
They give him a ticket to fly home, and he doesn't use it, and they know it. So they're like, well, where the hell is he?
But they're like, oh, we don't care. As long as he doesn't actually sabotage the movie, we don't care where he went. And we find out later.
He vanishes for a while.
He vanishes. And then we see the shit show of the movie. Like, what's going to happen, basically.
Because Frankenheimer shows
Because
up.
Frankenheimer shows up, and he just has no care.
Doesn't care.
Just no care.
He's trying to use this situation to get himself back into Hollywood.
Right.
If I do this for you,
you give
me a
me
deal.
3-picture deal, and
I just want to get the thing finished, and I don't care about it.
More money.
And so Brando doesn't like him. He doesn't like Kilmer. None of them like each other, and poor Fairuza Balk is in the background because that's her. Richard Stanley was her friend, so
became her friend. Yeah, they became
she wants
friends.
out, and her agent's like, you'll never work again. They'll sue you.
They'll sue you, and then they'll tell other people not to work with you.
They'll destroy your career.
Your name will be tarnished.
So she's stuck there.
Thank God she stayed because I love The Craft, and The Craft was after this movie, and I adore her.
She's awesome.
I think she's in Waterboy.
She's one of my favorite actresses.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
And she's such a heart, such a sweetness in the center of this
movie.
But
see, I think this movie helped her in a way because she is a very sweet person, but I think it gave her a backbone to work on projects and to know when to say probably no or when to.
It was good experience.
It was.
Even a disaster like that is a good experience.
It's a good experience to know, like, I never want to go through that shit again.
And the thing is, like, that's all those people. In the meantime, all the local actors who are hired as Beast people, they're loving it. They're having the time of their lives.
Because they were there supposed to be for 3 to 4 weeks.
And
it
turns into months.
6 months.
Months. And they're all getting paid. They're all getting per diem. They basically get done up in full makeup all the time, every day, ready to go. And they're almost never used. So they just party all the time.
Party, drink, do drugs, have sex, whatever.
They bring in this little tiny midget guy, De La Rosa, and he basically runs around and becomes a menace.
Well, at first, so they brought him in because I think Richard found him or whatever and thought he was like, it was nice to find like a little person who and he was like the tiny, like he was Vern Troyer tiny.
17 inches.
Yeah. And he's
smaller than Wang Wang.
Yeah, so he's a little teeny tiny short guy, and he's running around, and the best part is that there was a German guy who was talking to Marlon Brando, and Marlon Brando starts talking to him in German,
he's fucking with him,
trying to talk to him in German, and the guy's like, I'm so sorry, cat on the tin roof, is that what you're saying?
No.
And he's like, no. And this other guy goes, oh, he's trying to say this, and he's like, yes. That guy speaks better German than you do.
And then he does the same thing to the little guy, and he just says, "Yes, senor." And he goes like, "I like him. I want him in all my scenes."
But the German guy's in all your scenes. Cut him out. Now this guy's in all my scenes.
And Fairuza Balk is like, yeah, he's just fucking with the picture at this point.
He's a troll.
He's a troll.
That's probably why you like that. Because
it is. At that point in his life and his career, he just lost his daughter. He already has contempt for the movie making industry anyway. Why not? Why? It's not his money.
I mean, he was already, like, they even said he was a difficult person for Don Juan DeMarco, which was the movie that New Line had done with Johnny Depp in him, and they didn't even want him.
He did not like Val Kilmer. They had one interaction, and he's like, dude, you've been out on the reef? Is it reef? I have a reef. I got reefs coming out my ass. And that was it.
Reefs coming out my ass. They did not talk after that.
That's so funny.
I love that. I love that kind of thing. That they did not. I mean, they didn't want to work together.
So he ends up creating all this stupid shit. It's like coming out with the white makeup on, with the peacock feathers, the ice bucket on his head.
He asked for peacock feathers, and they're like, "We're in the middle of an island. Like, how are we gonna find peacock feathers?" So one of the guys runs. He was like, "I don't care, find it." So he runs over to this guy. And the guy says, "Hey, art director guy, or whatever. Can you make us some peacock feather stuff?" So the guy finds a peacock randomly and plucks it out. I thought the peacock was dead. I thought, like, I had heard that the peacock was dead in the middle of the road, and he just found those.
No, he found a raw alive one.
Found a live peacock. He just plucked out I'm like, poor peacock. Like a naked peacock.
And so from then on out, all of the other scenes that were supposed to have the German actor now has De La Rosa, the little guy, and so they make him into that's the whole mini-me thing. The whole thing comes from this, and he dresses just like Marlon Brando. He looks just like him. He's doing the same things, And yeah, South Park, that totally picks it up from there.
All of them, yeah. They
great.
Must all love the Island of Dr. Moreau.
So many great things have come from this movie. It's just amazing.
And it's bad, but it's like
it's a disaster.
It's a disaster, but like you look at it and you're just like.
It's actually been a good while since I sat and watched the whole thing. I have to watch it again. I think it'd be so much fun.
But yeah, so there's like a lot of craziness, a lot of stuff that happens, and then
meanwhile, Richard Stanley's been off smoking pot in the woods, being depressed, and they find him, and he decides he wants to go back in and check on him.
No. They want him to.
Yeah.
Because they're like, they you know, the friends. The people that were like worked with him and stuff, they were just like, you gotta see what's going on over here.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, if I go over there, they're gonna sue me. I was, now if you put this dog head on, put a dog head on him.
So he becomes an extra.
He becomes an extra. So he felt like that was such a weird transition from being the creator of it to now being a dog.
But yeah, he goes from being the director to being told not to come within 40 kilometers of the set to getting on set and participating throughout the rest of the shoot as one of the extras. Meanwhile, the production people are in the background going like, there's that one guy who won't take his makeup off whenever we have a break. I wonder who he is. And they never figure it out.
I think that some of them may have wondered if was him, you know, or whatever. But they said, like, we thought if he's, as long as he doesn't actually sabotage the set. And he doesn't. Because that wasn't he wasn't a troll. He wasn't whatever.
No.
I think he just wanted to see what was happening to the production that he.
And then I think he enjoyed being the backup, you know, being in the extra and doing all that.
Because he got to blow shit up and he got to do stuff with fire and they gave him torches and he was just like,
I mean, why not at that point?
Yeah, at that point he just had nothing else to do and I mean, instead of going home and not and just wallowing in sadness.
Then he kind of vanishes from Hollywood, which is the shame because I remember waiting for his next movie and it just didn't come and forever, you know. And he finally did, but I mean, he's not the first.
He's got something new out, right? Or something.
He's not the first artistic bent independent artist director who's gone into Hollywood and had a very bad experience, you know.
That's why you don't go to Hollywood then after that. You just go make your movies independently.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's not like, I mean, maybe after watching this
Bill
movie,
Forsythe had a bad experience in Hollywood. And
who?
There's a number.
Oh yeah, Bill Forsythe.
There's a number of ones who just because it's a different system. They don't have the personal love and the personal vision and all that's in there. At least maybe someone does at the very, very beginning. But by the time it gets to the suits, all they're interested in is the financing part and the money part.
That's the money, making sure that they make their money.
Yeah.
They make a profit. They don't care about the movie itself, you know, or whatever it looks like.
And it's brought up, and it's true, and it's a shame. But the $8 million picture that Richard Stanley would have made probably would have been a pretty good film, as opposed to the $40 million one that Hollywood ended up salvaging.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Shea says it the best. He's like, you know, it bombed, but at least we made some money on it. Whereas if we'd have just folded up, we would have lost all that money.
We lost all the money. Yeah,
so that's why you end up with stinkers in Hollywood, because they, even if they see it, they can tell it's going to be shit. By the time they've already spent money, it's not cost effective to just close it down.
Right.
You might as well get something out of it.
Yeah, but nowadays people just write them off as tax write-offs instead, so they don't ever show the movie, and then that's not cool. Like no. I don't like that. Like
I'd rather it come out even if it's not the best.
Yeah, I'd rather it come out because like sometimes those are fun to watch, the ones that aren't the best, because you know maybe too many cooks were in the kitchen and they were, you know, they were all playing with the different stuff. So I don't know.
Plus, you can re-edit stuff. I mean, a lot of your storytelling is in the editing. You know what I mean? So if it comes out and it's not nearly as good as you expected, shit, edit it into something different. Make it into a comedy. You know, for real. Not just say it's a comedy. You know.
I wonder what Fairuza Balk did in Sydney though. Like, cause she talked about how she went to Sydney randomly. Like she had one of her driver over there. And then the driver came back, and they were like, "Dude, you shouldn't have done that. Like, you're not supposed to take the actor to Sydney." And
I
like,
don't know. I'm sure there's a story there. If she wanted us to know, she would have told us more. I would love to know. Someday, if I ever get a chance to talk to Firuza Balk, I don't know.
Oh,
see if she'd be comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, but I'm sure it was just she just wanted to get away.
Yeah.
Go to a nicer area.
Like I said,
Australia.
he was her friend. She didn't want to see him so disappointed after he was so into everything.
And the best part is she talked to Marlon, and she was like, "Okay, do you want to discuss this stuff?" He's like, "No.
Don't worry
She's
about
like, "Well, I mean, we should discuss this." Blah, blah, blah. It's like, look, this movie is gonna come out. It's gonna be crappy. It's gonna be bad. I don't care.
You're getting paid. I'm getting paid.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Let's just have fun, you know. And that was his philosophy for the whole movie. You could tell from the very beginning when he walks out, nobody knows he's going to be. He's in fucking white makeup and shit, and like everybody's just like, wait a minute, what?
And the one Australian guy would put it out. He's like, both him and Val Kilmer were trying to screw around with the movie as best they could, except Marlon Brando did it in a more friendly, fun kind of way, whereas Val Kilmer was more like a bully.
Yeah.
Though
I will say Marlon was sort of an ass because there at one point he said, "Let's fuck Bob Shea
over,
and we'll shut down the production, and then us writers will write it, and then I can create my character the way I want it to be done, and all this stuff." And I think he was being serious, right?
I'm sure he was.
And I think that's kind of messed up. Like, why mess with Bob Shea? Bob Shea had nothing other than like greenlighting the project. He didn't have anything to do with all this stuff.
Yeah, but I guess he figured that he's just part of the Hollywood group.
Yeah, I mean he did fire Richard, but that was a group decision that was made because Val Kilmer came and said,
"And who are you going to get rid of? You're going to get rid of you're not going to get rid of anybody else. You're not going to get rid of Val Kilmer.
Star, no, and you're not going to get rid of Star, and you're not going to get rid of Marlon Brando like the second star. You're not going to get rid of the big time actors." Now, who replaced Rob Morrow?
David Thewlis.
Who's that?
He's a guy he was in the 90s kind of like a minor big deal. I don't know.
Should have got like Jeff Goldblum.
I don't remember what he was doing since then, but I know he was in a whole bunch of movies back then. He doesn't really kind of register much in the film, and I don't know. He's one of the few guys that they did not talk to for this film.
So most likely he did not have a good experience.
He probably didn't have a very good experience.
Which is funny because Rob Morrow didn't have a great experience, but he at least was open to talking about it because he wasn't, I guess just to get his side of the story cleared.
Plus, Rob Morrow came in at the worst possible. That's when like all the weird accents were happening and the giant hurricane was happening and all this other shit was happening, so he kind of stepped in right at the worst time, and then he's like, "Get me the hell out of here."
I think it's really funny that and interesting that the voodoo guy got really hurt and all this other stuff at the same time all of his stuff was happening, meaning like
funny.
All the stuff that he had, all those voodoo stuff he had done all came undone when he was like, and they even said like his mom or something like Richard Stanley's mom saw like a hyena in Ireland or something, and he was like, "There's no hyenas in Ireland."
But he had it on his wallpaper in the place he was living.
Yeah, it's funny. So he like all of a sudden all this crazy shit was happening. Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know. But like it's fun to believe that it could be true. That like you fuck with magic, and it's more like karma, because he forced something that shouldn't have been forced, basically. When everybody so this is my
repercussions.
Take. This is my take, yes. So this is my take. So Richard Stanley, creator, comes up with this stuff. Then somebody, I forgot who it was, maybe Mike DeLuca, somebody said, "Let's get Marlon Brando and bring that out to Marlon Brando." Marlon Brando agrees. Richard Stanley, I don't think originally thought of him.
No.
He
wanted Jürgen Prochnow.
Yeah, and so they said, "Okay, well, we're gonna go with him, and let's get rid of Richard Stanley. So let's set this whole thing up." So
and there's the problem. It's Richard Stanley's project. He wrote this.
And he came up, but he's the one who brought this into them.
Motherfuckers.
I know. So they're like, let's get rid of him because he's not a big enough name director to have this attached to this. But honestly, he is sort of like the odd man out because he really can't handle a huge production like this. He's never been on a huge, that's why you have to get him an assistant director.
Exactly. You have to help him out.
Yeah, helps him out. But they didn't. So, and I think I'll have a thing with that in a second. But my theory is that this was all karma. So, they were all saying right then and there, right? Like, we need Richard out. Let's get Richard out, and everything's going to be fine.
And we'll use
Let's do
Marlon
this.
Brando to
He goes to his buddy who does voodoo just to make it work for him, right?
Right.
It's like when you pray to God for selfish reasons, I want this job, let me keep this job. And, that's
make sure
your
you
thoughts.
screw over someone else.
Yeah, let me make sure you screw over somebody else that would have probably done a better job than I would, or whatever. So he goes and does this. All this stuff happens in his favor, right? Well, if you go and you fuck over whatever, in order for you selfishly to get, all of a sudden karma comes back and says, nope, that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. This is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, but my counter argument to that is how do we know that was the way it was supposed to be? The way it should have been is he should have kept control of his own project and not have New Line say, oh, we're going to just get rid of you and put in somebody that we think is going to do a better job.
Well, here's two problems with that. First of all, it wasn't his project. Remember, he talked about that in the beginning of the movie. He talked about how this was owned by the Wells family.
Well, it was his project, but he needed New Line to get the rights
to it. But he didn't own the rights to it at that time. So it wasn't his project. It was his idea. It was his concept.
And script.
And yeah, but then didn't they hire another writer to rewrite the script
Later
or something?
On.
That was like the writer of some big name movies and stuff like that he was happy with. He said he wrote like the best book on like war or something like that. So he was very happy with the guy who wrote it, or whatever. But yeah, I think he co-wrote it with that guy or something, right? So it was their original script together. So he would have gotten paid to be a writer if they had just fired him and said that. And he would have been the creator of it.
He wanted to be the director. He wanted to direct the vision of the story.
He had ideas. He had grand schemes of what he wanted to do. Wonderful.
And if they had left him alone and let him do it, it probably would have been a good movie.
Right. But, yeah, and they should not have brought in Val Kilmer.
It just would not have become the big popcorn thing that they were expecting it to be.
Well, I mean, and then we talked about it, but all those other situations, having Bruce Willis, that's completely different. Bruce Willis.
Bruce Campbell would have been awesome.
Yeah, I think Bruce Campbell would have had fun. He would have been friends with Marlon. And that was the funny thing is everybody came on the project because they wanted to work with Marlon. Not because they wanted to work with Richard. Not because they wanted to work with Val Kilmer. Because they wanted to work with Marlon.
Mm-hmm.
Because
he's a legend, even then.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was legendarily difficult to work with. But it's the same thing as, like, there's a lot of legendary difficult people today, that are out there, making movies, but a lot of people still want to work with them because they know the stuff that they've done before is just phenomenal. So anyway, all in all, though, it sort of shows you, like, he went out and he tried to do stuff, he tried to get it made, and then it just backfired on him because he forced himself into something that, even though he deserved the right to be the creator and to be the director of it and everything, that's not what the producers wanted, and those are the people who had the money.
But then you look at it and you can say equally that it backfires on just about everybody.
Everybody, yeah.
With the exception of the extras. They made out like bandits. Good for them.
Except for Marlon Brando, who just didn't give a fuck.
Right, and De La Rosa, who, was plucked from obscurity and, got this role. And it was funny because Marlon Brando's like, this is going to be a crappy movie. It's not going to do well. You and I are going to move on and do other things. But for this guy, this is going to be like the best experience for him. And he was right.
Yeah, for the little guy. Well, I mean, he had a fun time, even though he he became more of a dick.
He became
later.
a dick later, which is great. He punched the German guy in the nuts, and the guy's like,
just
"What are you gonna do about it? You gonna beat up the smallest person on the planet?
No. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It made me start wondering about how to deal. How do you deal with something? Because like, I'm a director, so say.
That's why you got to worry about names. You have to really make sure that if you want a name, that they're not going to be somebody who's going to fuck over or take over a production, like we've had other situations.
Yeah, we've had other situations where people have done that, but and how do you handle that? I don't. Sometimes I can't handle shit as well, and you can't fly off the handle. You can't yell at people. You can't curse at people.
So New Line, if they were going to do this, even if they were going to change things around, they should have given him an AD and a couple other folks to support him, to help him out. He was all by himself at a completely other side of the planet and dealing with people and egos that he had never had to deal with before. These are the folks who probably should have stepped into Val Kilmer and say, look, you agreed to do this. This is what we're going to do.
Well, he wouldn't care because he literally, I don't think he wanted to do it. He said he didn't like the character. He didn't like this stuff. He wanted to take a lesser role. Like and even then he didn't
did.
And even then he didn't like. And
that's just it. And the guy would have said, "Look, we bent over backwards. We gave you exactly what you wanted."
Yeah, but he's gonna say, "I don't give a fuck." Like I'm still Val Kilmer. I'm still gonna say or do whatever I want because So,
but you still signed a contract. The same thing that Fruza Balk talks about can be applied to him.
My favorite bit is that he was in his trailer, would not come out of his trailer until Marlon Brando came out of his trailer. Marlon Brando would not come out of his trailer until Val Kilmer came out of his. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here?
That's really bad. That's a bad
John
situation.
Badham, the famous director John Badham, made a book called "I'll Be in My Trailer," and I think one of those scenes because it's all about dealing with egos and dealing with just making something good. He had to deal with that on Saturday Night Fever, dealing with John Travolta at that time. Because John Travolta at that time was blowing up bigger and bigger and kind of.
Imagine if Gary Busey been in the cast.
Well, let's remake it and cast.
Please.
Cast Gary Busey as the Marlon Brando.
With his whole sausage.
It'd be like, I saw the movie Lost Souls, and I want a peacock thing. Go find me a peacock thing.
Yeah, you think you're weird? I can out-weird you, Marlon Brando.
I'm gonna have it.
Hold my beer.
I'm gonna have my peacock beard.
Butter sausage. I want butter sausage all over me.
Oh man, we can't do that though. Unfortunately, Gary Busey's kind of been canceled. I don't know how much.
Oh, that makes me want to work with him even more.
I don't know how much he's working these days.
He's on Cameo these days doing stuff, so good for him.
Well, yes. Anyway, yeah, it was a fun movie.
Clearly, there is a lot going on in this picture. This is great, and for Blu-ray, it looks gorgeous.
And it was Severin who put it out.
Yeah, good job, Severin. And it's got outtakes, it's got interviews.
It's got interviews for the interview.
Right. It's got all kinds of different stuff.
Always makes me laugh.
Featurette. Several
featurettes.
featurettes.
Let me see real quick. Does it have commentary? It does. Well, it says a Graham Humphreys concept gallery with commentary by Richard Stanley.
Stanley's awesome, by the way. You really get into him and his character, or not his character, but his persona, and see things from his point of view. And he's amazing. He's marvelous. I would love to work with Richard Stanley any day of the week in any capacity. I think he's awesome.
It says Barbara Steele recalls Moreau.
That's right. They did. They did. I don't know if they ever used her. I don't remember if they used her footage or not. But yeah, Barbara Steele.
That's sweet. So yeah, it's got a couple little featurettes and stuff about the making of this documentary. So it's funny to see making of documentaries about a documentary.
It'd be very interesting if we were to bring on somebody like, say, Stephanie or Jolyn or someone who's never seen either movie before, and we show them this first, and then we show them the finished product. Just to see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting to see how they look at it.
I don't know. Wouldn't you?
Because I saw that.
I think it would be the
theater.
opposite. You'd want to show the movie first, and then show them the making of what the disaster that it took to do it.
I'd love to
because
do.
otherwise you're getting kind of a glimpse into like.
Exactly. I kind of want to do both, one to one person and one to another.
Oh.
Different just to see.
Okay.
But I mean, I saw that the movie in the theater long before this came out. I was one of those idiots that went into the theater and saw it because Faiza Balk and Marlon Brando, and I mean, come on. And
Val Kilmer.
Also, by the time it got released in the theater, it was already word had gotten out that this was a bomb of legendary proportions. So I knew at the time that it wasn't going to last in the theaters for very long. So I made sure to go out and
check it out.
And then it went on HBO, and it was like on HBO for a long time.
I mean, it would be different than today's bombs.
Yeah.
Like, if a movie bombs today, it's just because people have no interest in it anymore. It's not because if they spend over budget on, like, a Marvel movie, nobody knows, nobody cares, nobody...
Right, and
whatever.
A lot of them just don't have, like, interesting stories behind why they bomb. Like, Battleship was a bomb, but it just wasn't very good. There really wasn't much of a story behind it.
Though. Like, there should be something there. I don't know. I whatever. But see, Battleship was based on a fucking game, a board game.
Right. I know. As opposed to a classic, a literature classic.
Literature, that classic piece of literature. I wonder if H.G. Wells's family still like holds their stuff and keeps
Probably
it.
Their estate owns the rights.
Yeah.
I would think.
So I don't know, like, because you see like War of the Worlds being made all the time.
And I loved like some of his original concept art where they set it in the future and some of the animal people are running around with machine guns and lasers and stuff. That would have been fascinating if it had been set in modern day or the future. That would have been fun. Or hell, I would love to see a series. Can you imagine the Isle of the Dr. Moreau series where it's set in the future?
It's funny because unfortunately they'll never have like Richard Stanley making it. And that's who I feel like would do it justice because, if another company, not New Line or somebody, could get the rights and actually give Richard Stanley the chance. I don't know if he would do it or not because he might have had a bad taste in his mouth from it.
If somebody out there got the rights and went to Richard Stanley and said, "Here's $10 million, make a 12-part series," I think he'd jump at the chance.
Yeah.
And I think he'd do a really good job.
It would be a different thing. You wouldn't cast Gary Busey,
No. He would do it seriously.
He would do it seriously, get a real good actor.
And you don't have to worry about getting everything in one 2.5 hour film. You'd have the luxury of being able to spread it all out and do things in detail over, say, 10 or 12 episodes, which is great.
Yeah, you'd film it somewhere out there, but like somewhere that has like tax write-offs.
I think that's part of the problem. I think his imagination was kind of too much for just the scope of a 2-hour movie, the way Hollywood sees it. I think it was just too much, and then you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think a series would allow him to explore all of that in a much better way, but they just didn't have that in the early 90s.
And and then the makeup and all that other stuff and the effects and everything would be so much easier now. Like, I mean, the stuff that they'd have to go through would just change.
Sometimes it's just timing. Maybe if Richard Stanley had waited 25 years, which is, I hate to say it, but if he had come with this opportunity
Not
now,
even a few years ago, like 10 years ago, I think he would have been able to make something good or whatever. But it's just, unfortunately, it was timing. Timing is key, and sometimes timing doesn't work out.
Sometimes it's just destiny. It's like it's just not going to happen. No matter what you do, no matter how much money you throw at it, no matter what happens, it's just gonna fail, and it's gonna fail spectacularly. And this is one of those movies. This is one of those projects. It's just boom. It's like the Titanic. It's destined to go down, and there ain't nothing anybody can do to stop it. And this production, this movie captures everything. And trust me, you want to see this. If you're not interested in the Island of Dr. Moreau or just horror movies in general, it doesn't matter. This is just a completely self-contained story.
It's a good documentary.
Yeah, in and of it by itself is a great documentary, which is what the show is all about.
Docs That Rock.
There you go. and this one definitely rocked. It's one of my favorites.
All right.
So
Well, thank you for picking it, Paul, because
You
I've
bet.
seen it before, but it's been a while, and I think I rented it from Netflix, and I was like, oh, let me check this out, and I was like, oh my god, this is really fun, and and I didn't know about Dr. Island of Dr. Moreau. I didn't know about that, but I watched the movie, and made me fascinated about it. So there you go.
it is. It's very fascinating, and there's probably more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about because there's only so much you could put into this. I'm sure there's probably more. You probably could make a second one, but I'm thankful for what we got. That was
I'm glad for what
pretty
we
amazing.
got too. So
There are
thank
plenty
you,
of
David
productions.
Gregory, for
Definitely plenty of productions. I would love to hear the stories about what happened. Fly on the wall. Be fascinating. So this is one of them.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul, and thank
Yep.
you everybody for checking this out. And join us, I guess, hopefully next month for a brand new episode. If not, it'll be another month. But we'll do it when we can. I was very happy to get this done, and we'll see you soon.
On the flip side, Docs
All
at
right.
Rock, baby.
Bye.
Docs